Okay, so today we're taking you around the world and we're talking about some of the
Scariest places in the entire world.
I said world twice, but you get it. They're really scary. And there's a lot of scary places, turns out, but I think I compiled some of the scariest. So let's get into it and hopefully you sleep well tonight. If you don't, I'm sorry. Number one scariest place happens to be in Japan, which happens to be also one of my favorite countries. This is about Nagoro, which is a small village that just so happens to be completely filled with life-size dolls. Yes, like straight out of a horror movie. Not small dolls, but like dolls the size of people. Yeah, those dolls basically outnumber the villagers, the people in the village, 10 to 1. So for every one person, there are 10 life-size dolls. And the dolls, you could see them look like they're fishing, they'll be sitting on their porches, they'll be looking like they're walking or gardening. It looks like real people, I guess, if you were to glance at it, which makes it even creepier. And what's interesting, there's a woman in this village who kind of started this whole thing. And her name is Tsukimi Ayano. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but she basically started making dolls that would represent every person in the village who passed away. She's not doing voodoo that I know of, but still creepy as shit. So the youngest person in this village currently is 50 years old. So it's obviously an aging population. They're dying off. These dolls are slowly replacing them. So I don't know what happens when like the last person is gone, because right now there are 350 of these life-size dolls and there are only 27 human beings. So again, is it gonna get down to the last one and they're gonna be like, that's it, it's just a village of dolls? And then at that point, that's even creepier. I'd probably go check this out. I would bring a trusted companion, ideally my dog. I don't know if he can make that trip to Japan, but maybe could like sniff out some danger. And I'd go during the day. So if you have been, let me know. But also if you haven't been and you're gonna go, stay safe and I don't know, carry like a Bible or something. Okay, number two, we're talking about a place in Lithuania. In Lithuania, there's a place called Hill of the Crosses. And wouldn't you know it just so happens to be completely covered in crosses. But what's weird is that, you know, crosses obviously are very symbolic in Christianity, and I think I guess it's a very morbid thing, but they're supposed to be uplifting. You know, there's crosses in church, they represent Jesus, but this place makes crosses feel very eerie. There's so many of them that they are described to basically move back and forth and hit each other almost like wind chimes. And if you look pictures up or videos, like on top of each other, and there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of crosses. And so the history is that people have actually been placing crosses on this hill since the 14th century, 1300s, a long time ago. Throughout the medieval period, the crosses actually represented independence in Lithuania. However, the Soviets came in 1944 and they bulldozed those crosses. They were like, no crosses here. No, 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 no. They were being bad, but they bulldozed the crosses. What happened is the locals were not having it. And so they kept building the crosses and putting more crosses up and more crosses up. And now there's more crosses up than ever. There's like almost too many crosses. In fact, there are more than 100,000 crosses crowded there, and it's a small space, so they're like really huddled together. It just seems like kind of dark and dreary and like very eerie. The chance of me going would be like a 7. I don't think it's like the end of the world terrifying, but at the same time, I don't know. There's a lot of history there, could be creepy. The imagery of it seems very creepy. So if you haven't been there, again, let me know. Okay, so number 3 are more dolls. So this one is called Island of the Dolls, and it's in Mexico, or you can call it Isla de Muñeca. My Spanish accent's bad, but you get it. It's called Island of Dolls. That's how it translates. And it's this teeny little island off of the coast of Mexico. And there are hundreds of dolls and just parts of dolls hanging from trees and scattered all over the grass and throughout the entire village. So they're not even like full-fledged dolls, all of them. They're like doll heads or a doll torso, which I think makes this even creepier. This island, no one lives there now. You can visit it. But so this island used to be an actual residence of a man named Julian Santa Barrera. And legend goes, story goes that he one day was out, and I don't know if, it seems like it was kind of uninhabited. It was just him at the time. He was out one day and there was a young girl he saw drowning in a canal. He jumped in and tried to save her, and sadly, she passed away. Very tragic. He was not able to save her. But in her remembrance, he decided to start putting up dolls to basically ward off any evil spirits that were on or coming for this island. He felt like there was like a demonic thing that caused her to drown. And what's weird though is that I don't don't know where these dolls came from, and they seem to just keep reappearing. He said that I guess there were a few dolls, so he hung those up, but then every time he'd go out after her death, he would find more and more and more of these dolls. And what's weird is like, it's this remote island. There was only one man there. I don't think he had any transportation. I don't know where he would go and get all these dolls. Like, it sounds like he's not lying, because where do you go and get a bunch of dolls and doll torsos and doll hair and doll heads, and if you're in the middle of nowhere? It's kind of weird. So there's like, seems to be some spooky evil presence going on here. He basically ended up drowning in the canal, the same canal that he tried to save this girl from. So again, seems like something's going on there. And you can visit the island now. It seems absolutely terrifying because it's completely uninhabited and there's just a bunch of dolls hanging everywhere. You can go by boat, but you kind of have to, it said that you kind of have to like beg locals to take you. It's not like a super like popular destination and people don't want to go there because it's eerie. And you can watch from, or you take pictures from afar, so you can't go onto the actual island. It's probably just a good idea to stay away from this. Number 4, this one is absolutely terrifying. So if you are a fan, or I guess creeped out by old asylums or like mental institutions, old hospitals, then this one's for you, because this so happens to be probably one of the creepiest, most abandoned hospitals in the world. It's in Germany and it's called, I'm gonna also butcher this name, but the Beelitz-Heilstätten Hospital, and it's outside of Berlin. What happened is that between 1898 and 1930, it served as a sanatorium for people who had tuberculosis. So basically, if you had tuberculosis, you'd go there and honestly just die, okay? Again, another setup for a horror movie. Then, shortly after that, towards the tail end, after the tuberculosis whole stint, they started to put people who were, you know, victims of like fatal or like near fatal shootings or victims of mustard gas from World War I. So they'd kind of just dump them in this hospital, and again, they would just die. I guess they'd attempt to treat them, but most of them would just die in the hospital. Super spooky. Interesting though, is that amongst the victims of World War I who were put there, your good old friend, who's not your friend at all, Adolf Hitler, also happened to be staying at that hospital. So he was sent there from an injury and recovered, unfortunately made it out alive. He stayed at this hospital as well, which adds to the whole like bad juju, if you feel me. To make matters even worse, after World War II, they were like, you know what's a good idea? Let's throw some Nazis into this hospital who I guess needed treatment. So it went from like bad to worse to like horrific, just housing like horribly sick people, Adolf Hitler, and then the Nazis. Think about the energy in that place. It's probably horrible, and it looks absolutely terrifying today if you could look it up. And then it was used as a Soviet military hospital. So from 1945 until the fall of the Berlin Wall, was that like 89? It was used for the Soviets. So again, you know, they weren't doing great things over there, and they were also sent to this hospital. It's completely abandoned. So after the fall of the Berlin Wall, everyone just kind of pieced out, and it's this really creepy, like it looks like something out of American Horror Story. I don't know if you saw that, like the mental hospital season, really scary. That was probably one of the scariest in my opinion, but it looks like that, and it's just all these abandoned rooms and treatment like facilities and everything else. And what's really creepy is that today, like a small part of it is used for neurological rehabilitation centers. It sounds like they're doing lobotomies. They're not. I highly doubt that, but they're using it for some medical purposes today. But what's creepy is that part is, I guess, being used, but then the whole rest of this massive hospital is completely abandoned and filled with all these like tragic stories and bad memories. And people claim that this is very haunted, not surprising. And this is one place that I would not go. I'd be scared that some sort of evil something would attach to me. I'd bring it home and that'd be like a whole thing. And I don't want to deal with that. So I would stay away from this one if I were you and me, which I'm going to do. Number 5, there is a place in the Philippines where instead of like having coffins buried, they actually hang them all over these mountains. So if you go there, it's called Sagada in the Philippines. And if you go there, you basically will just, if you look up on like, you know, it's a very mountainous area. There are just coffins, so dead bodies hanging around all of these mountains. And you have to be very careful walking. I would be scared because God forbid one of the coffins fell. Like they're strung up with with ropes. And the belief is that they would try to get, you know, dead family members, friends, etc., people who had passed away, as high up on the mountain as possible, because then in theory you would be closer to God or heaven, etc. I guess the rationality behind it, it's very interesting, but it looks like a really scary place. And this goes all the way back to the Middle Ages, and what they would do is people would literally carve their own coffins that they would, like, as they were dying, and then have like friends and family put them in there, and then the friends and family would hang up these coffins. It looks like a lot of work, also terrifying. And if the people weren't strong enough to do it themselves, then they would have someone carve these coffins for them, I guess, while they just waited to die and then just be strung up. And you can visit today. Again, super eerie, a lot of death, because we have cemeteries and stuff, but they're usually, you know, concentrated, but this is throughout this whole area on all of the mountains. So it just looks like it looks like something out of a horror movie. Like if I was in a horror movie and I got off track somewhere in a back alley and I looked up and there were all these coffins, I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave right now. And I would then leave if I didn't get kidnapped. I don't know if I'd visit this area. Number 6, last but not least, this is my favorite. I did a video about this like a while ago. Scariest one in my opinion. I actually wrote a movie script that was based around this island, but it's off the coast of Brazil, and it is known as Snake Island. And it is literally an island that detached from Brazil, and it's 90 miles away from São Paulo. The island is completely covered in snakes. Like just every centimeter is covered in the deadliest, most vicious snakes in the entire world. And that I am not trying to go to, and good thing you can't. You are absolutely, the Brazilian government is like, nope, can't even get near it. Don't think about it. You are not going near that island because you would get killed in a second. I mean, there's literally like the most dangerous snakes in the world just like waiting to pounce. And the majority of the types of snakes are the golden lancehead vipers. And again, those are one of the most deadliest snakes in the entire world. They're vicious, they'll kill you in a second, bad. So how this whole island came to be is basically, we're going back like a long time. So 11,000 years, sea levels rose and it split this small piece of land off of Brazil, and it slowly drifted and became its own little island. There were already, I guess, some snakes there, but over time, as they became more and more isolated and they evolved, basically the snakes in this island became what they describe as hyper evolved to deal with this new environment. Instead of just slithering on the ground, like the only prey they would get for the most part are birds. So they learned how to fly, to live in trees, to like not making normal snake movements, and not just slithering on the ground. These are vicious, and they also adapted to become more vicious. Also, what would happen is because birds are their only prey for the most part, they couldn't track them down because there's so many snakes, and the birds could fly away because it's a small little island. And so their venom adapted to be 5 times stronger than the normal venom of the most deadliest snakes not in this island. So these are like next level, terrifying, vicious, flying, tree-mongering demon snakes on this island, and it's just covered with them. No one has been there in a very long time. You can see, I think there's some aerial footage of it, but this gives me horrible heebie-jeebies. Another thing I should mention is, you know how I said the venom was like 5 times stronger than normal deadly snakes? Also, that venom is so deadly that it would melt the flesh off of human beings. Imagine being trapped. Like, I don't even know. I guess you couldn't be trapped there. I don't know. You'd have to get washed up on shore, and then at that point, I just say goodbye. Don't go there. You're not allowed. The Brazilian government will stop you. They always say, they put an announcement saying this is absolutely prohibited. You can't get near it. So those are the 6 scariest places in the world that I found. I will be back with more. We got some more creepy places to explore, and I'll talk to you guys soon.